And again, we couldn't be more excited. Ryan Law, wow, what an honor to have you here on the Intentionally and Friends Book Club. I am so excited for those of you who are joining live and for those of you that are watching the replay. You are in for a great, great treat today. I also think like Ryan, it's November. Like this is the
Hmm.
perfect month
Yeah,
to be having a conversation around student loans, right?
absolutely. Yeah, it's a great time, here right before the holidays, before we get into the spring semester and the next academic year. It's a great time for it.
Yeah. So again, appreciate everybody here on the call. Big shout out. Let us know where you're coming in from. So whereabouts in Utah are you today,
I am
Ryan?
in Orem, Utah. And so that's where my university is, Utah Valley University, where I teach. And so that's where I'm coming from. I live in a different part of the state, about 20 minutes south of here. But yeah, so Orem's about an hour south of Salt Lake. Everyone knows where Salt Lake City is. That's the capital of Utah. So it's about an hour south of there.
Yeah, and the what they did to the airport
Oh yeah,
is it's humongous.
it is. Yes.
You could get like 5,000 steps
That's right.
in that airport just alone, just from, like a regular domestic flight. It's
That's
really
right.
incredible. Well, again, we're so thankful that you have all joined us. And a couple of housekeeping before we get started and get into the meat of the material. And certainly let me know before I start reading those housekeeping items, let me put this in the chat for you all. And again, we're so excited that you're here. And then here it is. I'm getting so much better with this and getting this already in the chat early. So within the chat, everybody, I just put a link to Ryan's book on Amazon. And I got to tell you, like, speaking of travel, Ryan, this is the
Mhm.
perfect thing to
Yeah.
have. It is the perfect size book
Mhm.
it fits in my purse, it fits in my bag, and I could absolutely see reading this on a flight and feeling so empowered from it. So you all have a link to get Ryan's book in the chat. Should also say I read it on both versions, the Kindle version, which was flawless,
Mhm.
amazing, and then having the hard copy as well too. That is going to go right to Kelly Waltrick, our CEO, who couldn't wait for you to be here. My kids are already done with college, and like I said,
Yeah.
where have you been all my life?
That's right. I hear that often. So
Yeah, I mean, great. Oh, I'm so excited. This is going to be such a great program. The also too, if you want to connect with Ryan, I've also put a link to Ryan's LinkedIn in the chat. Definitely connect with him on a variety of topics. He's somebody that you want to know. And there's also a link to Financial Behavior Keynote to book Ryan at your next event. Again, he could talk on a variety of subjects. And again, put it in the chat. Let us know where your oh, okay, here. It would really help everybody if I put it in the chat to everybody, not just to the
oh,
panelists.
there you
Okay,
go.
there we go. It's to everybody. And let us know where you're coming in from here in King of Prussia today, whether it's sunny and it's cold.
Mm,
But it's not really like cold. Put that in air quotes at like
that's
50
right.
something degrees. To me, that's a little bit cold. Ah, okay. Dr. Mary Bell Carlson is in DC today. We can't wait to have her on the next book club along with Jonathan Walker. That's December 13th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Mary Bell Carlson, and also to bringing Ryan Law to us. Really excited. Okay, so I'll get into the housekeeping. Again, thanks to everyone coming to you live from Intentionally headquarters and studios in King of Prussia, PA. We're about 30 minutes outside of Philly. Our special guest, Ryan Law, author of Student Planning, A Borrower's Guide to Understanding and Repaying Student Debt, updated and revised. How awesome was our timing? Third edition just came out in October, the end of October. Details about the new Save Repayment Plan. I didn't even know what that was until I read your book. So you all know me, Tina Powell, Chief of Community here at Intentionally, and today's host. And again, a big shout out to Intentionally co-founder and CEO Kelly Waltrick, who conceived of this idea of the book club so that we could shine a light to transformative thinkers and leading authorities on all topics in finance. And today is certainly one of those days. So make sure you're subscribed at Intentionally to get the latest info on the book club. If you're having any questions or any technical issues, let us know in the chat. And this book club is being recorded, so it will be available at a future time on our website. And again, if you're listening live, fantastic. If this is recorded for you, big shout out. Thanks again. If you want to recommend an author, book club at growintentionally.com is the email address. And lastly, we appreciate the courteousness of your time. Understand that this program is educational in nature. We're not offering any financial advice, any specific financial advice to yourself and your circumstances. Please consult with a registered financial professional for that. So with that said, okay, now we get to your bio. Ryan H. Law, CFP, HFC, AFC, author of Student Loan Planning, A Borrower's Guide to Understanding and Repaying Student Debt, just released October 28th, 2023. Paperback, Kindle, both of those formats, get them both. Ryan Law is the director of the Utah Valley University Money Success Center. You're an award-winning educator who teaches financial counseling courses as part of the personal financial program at UVU. Ryan is a certified financial planner, CFP professional, and an accredited financial counselor, AFC. Both of those credentials, very, very hard to get. You're also, big shout out, you're also part of the Financial Behavior Keynote Group. We put a link in the chat. So if you want Ryan to speak, if you wanted to inquire about Ryan to speak at your next event and other distinguished members of Financial Behavior Keynote Group, definitely make sure that you're connected as well there too. And in addition to student loan planning, you've also co-authored Make Positive Changes, and you've served as a co-author to Financial Counseling. You live in Utah with your wife and children. Again, it is such an honor. Thank you so much, Ryan. How are you feeling today?
Great. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited to talk with you and the others on the call about student loans today.
So the first thing that we like to do is kind of mix mix it up and put a question out to the universe. And that is we have a fun fact about Ryan. So let me Ryan, you and your wife are celebrating your wedding anniversary next year. Everyone, how many years has Ryan and his wife been married? Okay, so while everybody's answering that, how many kids do you have?
We have 5 kids. So one is in college now. She's here at Utah Valley University. So I saw her on campus yesterday. And then our other 4 are still living at home. Our youngest is 7 years old. So we got a variety of kids in there, ages in there.
Wow, wow. Okay. 5 kids. That
5
is
kids.
fantastic. It's a good thing you wrote this book.
That's right.
Of anybody that needed it, you probably what a great exercise.
That's right.
Okay, so we've got guesses. So 20, 25, and 30. So everybody has guessed 25, 100%. What's the magic number, Ryan?
The number is 25. Yep. Next year we hit 25 years.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, well, congratulations to you and your wife on that.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for everybody who took the poll. Okay, so another question that we like to ask when we get our distinguished authors here. What was the genesis of the book? I know you and I had a little bit of time to speak. I'm always fascinated. What makes someone want to write a book like this about student loan planning?
Yeah, so for me, I've been working in higher education for almost 14 years now. And I was at the University of Missouri prior to coming to Utah Valley University. And I would get students who would come in who wanted to talk about student loan debt. Most of them had fairly low balances. So we would just talk about loans in general and how to pay them back. And then there was a particular student who came in, and I've changed his name, but it was near the end of my time actually at the University of Missouri. So he came in. It was a late appointment. He said he really needed to speak with me that night, and so I met with him that evening. And he comes in and basically just laid it all out on the table. He said he had over $200,000 worth of private student loan debt, and that he had no idea how he was going to pay that back. And so we talked about why he had so much debt. he went to a small Christian university that was about $50,000 a year in tuition. He had basically an unmarketable degree, so he was living back at home, working a minimum wage job. And I remember asking him, I said, Jake, during your 4 years of school, did anyone, a parent, a financial aid advisor, an academic advisor, your grandma who co-signed your loans with you, did anyone sit down with you and look at your debt levels and say, this may not be sustainable for you, and let's consider some other alternatives? And he said, no. Everyone just kept saying, you'll be able to pay these off easily once you graduate because you'll have a degree. And so you'll have no problem paying these loans back. And I helped Jake with what I could, but basically I sat down after he left. I just sat in my office and I thought, how did that happen? To a kid who was 18 when he started school. And so I started collecting data, I started collecting stories, and just recognized that I needed to do better. I needed to understand student loans better so that I could help the individuals coming in. And then eventually the book was written as a result of that. I now offer, education on student loans. I've got the book available. So it was really, I needed to do better and I needed to understand them better so I could help students like Jake who came in, hopefully avoid it in the first place. But for those who have the debt, I can help them to make a plan to get out of debt.
It was such an inspiring story. It hit me like a ton of bricks because again, I said to you early on, like, where have you been all my life? Like
Right.
I finished undergrad, I finished grad school, but both of my kids are done with college. And I remember going to like a PTA meeting and a school-wide meeting and learning about the FAFSA, but they provided absolutely no like education whatsoever around student loans. And I know that you've made some delineations. There are some really important delineations that you make throughout the book, the difference between private and public we're going to get in there. But another thing that stopped me in my tracks and hit me like a ton of bricks is that and I'm a very emotional person, is that this was an aha moment for me. You said, back to Jake's story, student loan debt is causing people to give up on their dreams.
Yeah, I've seen that so many times when people who they want to start a family, they want to buy a home, they want to save for retirement, but they're repaying their student loan debt. Again, this is a decision they start making at 18 years old for a lot of students, and they get into this high level of debt. And so it does. I've seen people who are just, they've kind of given up on the plans that they had for the future and what they really wanted to do because of this student loan debt that's in their way.
Yeah, so I would imagine is who when you wrote the book, and again we talked about the why.
Mhm.
I imagine that this book is just as a parent, I
Okay.
would have loved this book.
Yeah, I've kind of seen two audiences for this book. One is students who have graduated and they're trying to understand their loans, and then the other is parents, some current college students, but a lot of parents of kids in high school. They'll purchase this book so that they can understand them ahead of time.
Yeah, for sure. And then I remind everybody that if anybody wants to ask a live question, Ryan is taking live questions. So we're going to start to get into the meat of the book here. And anybody that asks a question live or puts a comment in the chat actually is registered to win. We are giving away a copy of Ryan's book and a $50 gift card to Amazon, a perfect time of the year. So, there one of the things I have to compliment you on was the way that we look at within book club, Brian, is that we're not only looking at the content of the book, but how it has been organized throughout the book. And what I like it is that every chapter starts out with a question. And miraculously, it was like you just picked the question off my brain, and then I'm able to go that to kind of talk about how you like backed into that
Mhm.
and reverse engineered into that format.
What I did is, as I was collecting data about student loans, I started just writing down questions that people would ask me, because I would get emails, and so I would write back and I'd create a new answer every single time. But I'm like, I should start cataloging some of these questions and my answers. So that was really the idea behind it. Is I didn't want a chapter just about different types of loans, but instead really organize it into Q&A, so you can go to the table of contents and you can say, okay, how much can I get in student loan debt? Or what does it mean to be in default? Or what is public service loan forgiveness? And you could just turn right to that chapter, read a couple of pages. I kept it very short on purpose. You mentioned reading it on an airplane or something. I kept the book short and the answers as short as possible so that you could just briefly read that section and get up to date on that.
Yeah, and a lot of we have a lot of financial advisors
Mm-hmm.
that are member here at the book club. I want to say that, you know, they're always looking for retention strategies
Mm-hmm.
and ways to stand out. If you're a financial advisor, you absolutely need to get this book. If I were a client of a financial advisor and they knew that, you know, again, through working with different platforms like, you know, eMoney and whatnot, and they knew that we just did an education funding exercise or scenario planning. If I received this in the mail from my financial advisor along with a note like, "Hey Tina, great seeing you. Here's a resource for you," I would be glued to that financial advisor pretty much for the rest of my life, I think.
Yeah,
So one of the things, let's talk about keeping college costs as low as possible. Again, that's something, got a lot of information in the book, but that's something
right.
right from the beginning. I think that's probably the question on everybody's mind is like,
Yeah,
college is just becoming, I'm so glad that, so glad that myself and my kids
right.
went through it. But Ryan, I mean, help us out here. It's getting so and so expensive.
It is.
How do we keep college costs as low as possible?
Yeah, so I share about 7 strategies in the book. I just thought we could go through a couple of those today, and we'll do them briefly. But one that I would recommend is to consider your choice of schools and to consider a low cost school, especially for those first 2 years. Generals are generals, whether you take them at an elite Christian university or an elite university or your local community college. So I always encourage people to get those generals out of the way as low cost as possible. So again, go to your local state college, go to your local community college, get those generals knocked out, maybe get that associate's degree that will then transfer over. And then you can go to a higher price school to one that has your program in it and focus on that. So that's one strategy. Another one is to choose the right major. I think that when it
Mm.
comes to your major, every school has a career center. They've got academic advisors who can sit down with you and they can help you. There's this idea that we're supposed to go to school and pursue our passion, which I think can be short-sighted advice. It's not. Maybe do a minor in something that you're passionate about, but get it. The purpose of college is to get a job, and so go to school with that idea that you're going to get a job in a certain area and I mean, study something you're excited about. If you're not excited about biology, don't study biology. But there's so many majors at universities. Go talk with the career center, find out where people are getting jobs. In my school, for example, we have more job offers available for personal financial planners than we do students, and so that's a big
Wow.
problem because they're interviewing with 3, 4, 5 companies, and they're getting multiple offers that they're able to choose what works best for them. So that's another strategy. I'll give one more. Live like a student. There is this new trend of luxury student housing with rooftop pools and tanning beds and stainless steel appliances and granite countertops. I didn't have any of that stuff until much later in life. And so I would encourage you, and it comes with a luxury price tag as well. So live like a student as much as possible, get that lower cost on campus housing if you can, or somewhere lower cost off campus. Save the luxury for later, especially if you are borrowing student loans to pay for that housing.
Yeah, that's really great advice. Those were things again that were never ever told. Something that we never talked about. And so those are great, great strategies. You have a question about work, which I really like. So we're going to launch our second poll. We're
Okay.
going to launch our second poll, and that poll, everybody, we'd love for you to weigh in here. And so let me launch that right now. And then let's get to the next poll. And then great. Oh, okay. I think you know what? We launched all polls together.
Oh,
So that's great. Okay, so here it is. So let me share the results for that. The second question is this: research shows that students, this is directly from Ryan's book, research shows that students who work 10 to 15 hours a week on campus are more likely to stay in school and have higher academic success than those who do not work or those who work more hours than recommended. Why did you put that in the book?
it's a good strategy for students to work a little bit so that they can pay for their food and maybe their books and a couple of other things. So even if they have to get loans to pay for their tuition and fees, if they can pay for some things with cash, they're going to be so much better off. And so, and yeah, the research shows it's about 10 to 15 hours that those are the magic numbers. And those are the two results, is that they are able to stay in school longer. They tend to have a higher academic success because they have to learn, first of all, how to budget their time. They have to learn how to manage getting to a job and getting to classes and spending time on homework. So it teaches them some good time management skills. And a lot of them tend to value their education a little bit more because they're helping to pay towards that right now instead of pushing it all off into the future.
That's great advice. My daughter was at University of Delaware and worked in the computer lab, and
Yeah,
it was a fantastic job for her because she was also too able to bring her own her own homework,
yeah,
so she could she's literally at one point getting paid for doing her homework. And
right.
I was so grateful that both of my kids worked that whole time management. I have to imagine too that your chances of getting both my kids were employed immediately after school. I want to imagine that them having jobs had something to do with that.
Right. I would imagine so.
Okay. Let's talk about the FAFSA because going back, rewinding the hands of time,
Yeah.
the only way that you're able to get student aid is that FAFSA. Can you talk
Mhm.
about the deadlines for the FAFSA and how that all works? Again,
Yeah.
we have a sophisticated audience, but I still think it's just great
Sure.
information to go to review.
Yeah, so in case anyone's not familiar, the FAFSA is the document that you fill out every year that helps you get federal student aid, and that can be that includes grants, it includes student loans, it includes work study. So all of those things are wrapped up in that one document. So the best advice that I have there is to get it done as early as possible. But there are deadlines for it, and each college has their own deadline. For most of them, it's December, November, December for the next academic year. So, we're here in November 2023. So, a lot of schools, their deadline is happening, they're early and their priority deadline is happening right now. And so that's for the next academic year that will start in the fall of 2024. So, check your college because every college has an early deadline. They've also got a hard deadline where they say, after this date, we can't you're not guaranteed to get student loans or other things, so make sure you meet that college deadline. The federal deadline isn't until June 30th for the previous academic year, so you don't have to worry about that one. Just work with your college, call your financial aid office or go to the website for your financial aid office, and they should be able to tell you the deadline there. But again, the quicker you get it in, the sooner you get that FAFSA in, the better off you're going to be.
Does that increase your probability of getting certain loans, like
It
having your
does.
FAFSA? Oh, it does.
Yeah, especially with grants, that maybe state money that's available or university
Mm,
money, they often will award this money until it's gone. And so that's why you want to have it in by that priority deadline if possible, because you have a much better chance of getting some grants specifically. Student loans work differently, but grants specifically that your school may have available or that your state has, but you have to meet that deadline in order to be considered for that.
okay, great information there. You talk in the book, there are lots of different kinds of loans,
Mhm.
and I think that you also mention what I really thought was very interesting is how you not only mention the types of loans, but you provided a order of operations.
Mhm.
Like if we are going to take student loans, here is the order of operations to do so. So could you kind of go through what that order of operations is? Again, it was
Yeah.
never explained to us the way that your book has done such a great job explaining it.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. So the very best type of loan is a direct subsidized loan. And so if you only undergraduate students qualify for that. But the nice thing about direct, and direct just means it's direct from the federal government, which all student loans are now. So it's called a direct subsidized loan, and no interest is going to accrue on that loan while you are in school. Other
Mm,
loans, you've got interest accruing the whole time, but those subsidized loans, if you borrow $5,000 your freshman year, when it's repayment time, you owe $5,000 because that's when interest starts, is after that. So always maximize those out first. And then the second thing you would want to do is those direct unsubsidized loans. The difference here is that interest starts accruing the day that you take that loan out. And so we'll talk about some strategies for repaying a little bit later in this conversation, but those are still directly from the federal government. There's benefits included with those loans that are better than most other loans out there. So, and if you're a graduate student, you cannot get subsidized loans, so you can only get these direct unsubsidized loans. So those would be the first two. The next one down the order of operations would be plus loans. And these are available for parents of undergraduate students or for graduate students. So there's kind of these two separate types of plus loans. And so if you need more beyond those first two, then consider plus loans. But they are higher interest. They're also they accrue interest from day one. And so I'm not a huge fan of plus loans, but they are there if you need them, especially for graduate school students. You usually cannot just go with the unsubsidized loan amount. And so you may have to step into those plus loans a bit, but just be aware there's high origination fees on those. They're higher interest. And so, but they are available. And that would be the order. If you have to go to the next step, which would be private student loans, I would recommend that you reconsider some things. Like maybe you need to take a semester off to work a little bit. Maybe you need to take fewer classes so that you can just get by on those other loans that are available.
can we talk about a little bit about how does it work, the interest rates for direct subsidized loans and direct unsubsidized loans? What are those anchored to? What are the interest rates?
Yeah, so they're fixed every year, and new interest rates come out in July 1st of each year. And Congress is the one who sets those rates. I mean, they're
Hmm.
advised by the Treasury Department or the IRS, other groups help education department. And so they set the interest rates every year, and that interest rate remains there for the life of that loan. So a couple of years ago, interest rates were really low. So I've met with students who have student loans that have like 2% interest. A lot of them now are at 6.5, 7.5%, because as rates have gone up in general, student loan rates go up as well.
And again, the example that you used in the opening of your book is that Jake, the 18 Jake, the 18-year-old who had $200,000 in student loans. He was what, like, you talk about the interest rates for the private loans. I guess that's why you're so against it. Again, I'm just making this assumption. Why should
Right.
we avoid private versus public your
Yeah.
loans? Exactly. What's the kiss of death here?
There's a couple of things. So first of all, if you get these student loans while you're going to school, so you take out a direct unsubsidized loan, you're going to get mailings from companies after you graduate or even during school that say, hey, switch your loan over to our company. We offer you lower interest rates. These are all private student loans. What happens is once you switch them over, you can never go back. So
Mm.
it's a one-time door. You go through that door and you refinance them into a private student loan. That door shuts forever. You cannot reverse that decision. So that's a big one. And I'll tell you, during the last couple of years until just last month, student loans were on pause. The payments were. That was only federal student loans. Everyone with private student loans had to continue paying their loans during that time. So yeah,
Wow.
that's a big thing right there, is you're losing those federal benefits that are available, like if there's a pause or uh,
Or a
anything like that.
pandemic.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. During a pandemic, we had 3 years of no payments and no interest accruing on student loans. That was only federal loans. They cannot step into the private market and say, okay, you also have to make these 0% interest for the next couple of years. So everyone who had private student loans continued to pay during that time. Couple of other things about private student loans: most of the interest rates are variable. I have seen fixed products where they fix the interest rate, but the majority of private student loans that I've seen are variable interest rates. So yeah, they've had low rates the last couple of years, but I'm starting to see 12 to 15% as an average interest rate for a lot of people with private student loans. So that's a big one. There's no loan forgiveness. You end up having a higher overall payment when you're paying private student loans. So I am not a fan of private student loans. I think you're better off getting almost any other kind of loan, including
Like a loan
perhaps,
from your aunt.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or home equity or something. I mean, there's
Yeah.
other considerations that come into play there, but their private student loans are not, they're generally not good loans for a lot of people.
And didn't you also too put something in the book? And again, this was really fascinating in terms of like bankruptcy.
Yeah.
How are private student loans handled in the event of a bankruptcy?
The exact same way that federal student loans are. So not impossible to eliminate, but much harder to eliminate. And there's current legislation that is supposed to make student loans a little bit easier to forgive in bankruptcy, but under current law, again, it's not impossible. I don't want to put that out there that it's impossible to get rid of them, but it's very
Right.
difficult. They've got the private student loan industry. They're mostly banks that offer these under different names. So they're large banks, lending institutions who offer these loans. They've got very powerful lobbying arms, and so they tend to have the same protections for the creditor that federal student loans do.
Great information. Again, want to remind everybody on the call here, thank you so much for joining us. Feel free to put your questions in the chat. If not, I've got a gazillion for Ryan. But if you put a question in the chat or put a comment in there, then again, you'll be entered to win a copy of Ryan's book and a $50 gift card. So, how is financial aid calculated today? I guess that's the magic question. Like, right, is everybody, no matter who you are, is everybody eligible for financial aid? And if you are eligible, and again, I guess that I'm asking like a huge question,
Sure.
like, right, but if you could kind of, break it down for us a little bit, I think that would be great.
Yeah, so it goes back to the FAFSA that we talked about earlier. So if you want student loans at all, the subsidized, the unsubsidized, the direct, the plus loans, you have to fill out that FAFSA. So you do that as early as possible every single year, and they will send you a letter back, the university will, that says this is how much you're eligible for in each of these categories. And so it's the amount that's available is determined by the year that you are in school. So the federal government says, as a first year student, this is how much you can take out. This is how much subsidized. This is how much unsubsidized. And that goes up every single year until your junior and senior year, it reaches its highest level. And so the school will let you know, but basically they take that FAFSA that you fill out, and there's a number created called your student aid index.
Mm,
And basically what that is, it used to be called your expected family contribution. And it just is saying, like, we expect you to put this much of your own money towards your education. You don't have to, it's not a requirement, but they're just saying, based on our analysis, you can put this much towards your education. So we will give you loans for the remainder of it up to this amount. And so that, again, that amount is determined by the FAFSA and by that number, that student aid index that is filed.
We have a great question from Michael here. How is it even possible for a student to have $200,000 in loans? Is there no protection for unwise students?
So there should be. I'll
Wow.
say that right up front. There should be protection for them. So the 200,000, those were private student loans, and there is not an amount that they will limit you to. So this Jake, he couldn't. He wasn't able to get $200,000 of student loan debt on his own. His grandma co-signed all of those loans for him. It destroyed their relationship. It destroyed her credit in the process, which is really unfortunate. But there, as I mentioned earlier, in case you missed it, Michael, I even asked Jake, I said, did nobody sat down with you, your grandma, a lender, your financial aid office, nobody sat down with you and explained the consequences of these loans? And he said, nobody. Everyone just kept telling me that I would be able to pay it off. So we'll get into another story when you want to, Tina, hear about Mike Maru and how much he
Oh,
accumulated in debt.
yes, yes. Is he's the orthodontist?
Orthodontist, yeah, in
Yes,
Utah.
please. That was again another like, wait, this
Yeah.
one is somebody smart, educated,
Yeah.
and in terms of like age, older, right?
A
Slightly
little bit.
older.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll tell his story and how he was able to get as much loans as he did. So yeah, Mike Maru, and he published his story. He met with the Wall Street Journal and he shared his story with them. So he went to the most expensive dental school in the nation, and he ended up taking out about $600,000 worth of loans. He initially tried to live further away from campus where it would be a little cheaper, and then the financial aid office said, hey, you can get all these plus loans. So why don't you, move closer to campus, stop working, and you can just get your education done quicker. So he ended up buying a much more expensive apartment that was closer to campus. He bought a nice car, all on student loan debt, because they just kept saying, hey, you'll be able to pay them off. Don't worry about it. So he accumulated $600,000 worth of student loan debt while he was in school. And then because interest was accruing on those loans the whole time, he when he graduated, he had another $125,000 in interest added on top of his loan. So now he owes $725,000, and he wasn't able to make the payment. So he went on something called forbearance, where your loans keep growing, but you don't have to make a payment. He said that by the time he was done with forbearance, because he was establishing his practice and
right.
trying to get going and paying off some other loans, and so he's just like, I'll just put these off. And then he got his bill after he was done with forbearance, and his loans were now over $1 million. And so he looked at this, and the interest alone on $1 million worth of loans was $3,900 a month. His
Oh,
payment, I can't remember, I've got it in the book, but it would have been this massive payment every single month. And so he went on a different repayment plan where he only has to make a payment of about $1,600 a month. But this idea that his loan $600,000 has grown to over $1 million. By the time he is done with his repayment plan, he will have paid $1.6 million, but he'll have over $2 million forgiven that he's going to owe taxes on. He'll owe about $700,000 in taxes when those are all forgiven down the road. And so this is somebody who he makes a great living, but he's looking at these student loans and just saying, what did I do? Like, how did I get myself into this? And he published his story to help warn other people. And so Mike took out, it was mostly plus loans, those graduate plus loans that I talked about. You can get a large amount of those loans every single year. So his dental school was about $150,000 a year, somewhere in that range. That's how he ended up with 600,000. Is that he was going to dental school, he kept on accumulating more and more debt. So yeah, he did publish his story as a warning to other people. That's why he was willing to share, what happened to him.
again, one of the things I think your book does a really good job in is bringing that anecdotal story, like things that we could really relate to and things that are actually happening. I did put the link in the chat, everyone, to the actual story in Wall Street Journal, subscription required. As you were speaking earlier today, I had a thought, and this was something that I don't know if people are doing right now. Are people going to undergrad or graduate school from international universities? Is that like a great way to, kind of fund education? We see a lot of, influx of students that are coming here. The opposite effect. Are we seeing that? Is that like an effective strategy being utilized today? That you see that could potentially work?
Going to school out of country, is that the question?
Yes.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
don't see a lot of that except for study abroad, which is a different thing altogether. That's with your current university. I've known some students who have gone out of country to go to get their education, and in a lot of cases they were able to get a lot of grant money or scholarship money to be able to do that. So I wouldn't say that, based on my own experience, that I've seen that it's an effective strategy to try to save a lot of money, but it's certainly something to consider. Although the education system in the U.S. is great, you should be able to find the major that you want to do at a university pretty close by. So that it's certainly a strategy you could look into, though.
Okay, great. Thanks for that answering that question. I would also to like to start to get into the saving on valuable education. Save again. I think that it was probably what like a core feature of the release
Yeah.
of the third edition. So, can you walk us through and tell us what saving on valuable education save exactly what it is?
Yeah, so this is the newest student loan repayment plan, and we'll just call it SAVE because that's what the federal government calls it as well. So it's the new SAVE plan. It was just released this summer. And so students are just starting to get switched into that plan. But basically, what it is, there's a couple of different, I guess, umbrellas for types of repayment plans. One is based on your balance and the amount of time that you're going to pay that back. And then there's this other category of income driven repayment plans where you pay a certain percentage of what the government calls your discretionary income. And so this new SAVE plan, most of them there's a calculation that's done. We won't get into the calculation here, but there's a calculation to figure out what your payment is. This new SAVE plan, the calculation is much more generous for the borrower. And so they're able to protect more of their income for their family, their household size. They're able to protect more of that income because the federal government is saying on this amount of income, you don't have to pay you don't have to pay student loans out of that. You need that just to survive and just to pay your rent and other things. So we'll make you pay on this other portion of your income. And so it's much more generous where more of your income is protected. And the biggest protection in this new plan is that no interest accrues. So let's go
Mm.
back to Mike Marew's story. He was paying, he was accumulating almost $4,000 a month in interest and only paying $1,600. So all this interest was accruing on his loan. With this new plan, if Mike switches over to that plan, that interest stops accruing. And that's true for all students. So there's no requirement to get into it except that you have to have federal student loans. You can't utilize these programs with private student loans, but yeah, no interest accrues. So if you've got $100 that's accruing every month in interest and your payment's only 50, that $50 will go towards the interest, but the other 50 just disappears. It is written off. So your balance will never grow. So if you borrow basically $5,000 worth of student loan debt, that's what you're going to have to repay if you get on this new plan. And again, it's called SAVE. It's available now. You can switch over to SAVE, or you can go onto the federal student aid website, run an analysis for what your payment would be under there. And so I would highly recommend that students take a look at this new plan.
And as a component of the SAVE plan, is there also to forgiveness
Mhm.
for undergraduate loans? And yes, there is. And after how many years?
Yeah, I'm looking at the poll here. It says under the Saving on a Valuable Education Plan forgiveness for undergraduate loans, we've got three different answers. So we've got 20, 25, and 30. So for undergraduate loans only, they're forgiven after 20 years. For
Mm.
graduate loans, it's 25 years. But the question was undergrad loans. So those are forgiven after 25 years. So anything remaining is forgiven at that point. It is taxable as income. So that is something to be aware of, is that you will have to pay taxes on any amount that's forgiven. They're trying to change that in legislation as well, but I don't see that happening. So plan on the taxes, plan on paying those off the year that you have those loans forgiven. But yeah, they will be forgiven after that amount of time.
And what about another topic that you also mention in the book is this idea of public service loan forgiveness? How do parents and how do students, how do you even know about these things? Seemed in the book to be like a lot of nuances, like even
Mhm.
though program may exist, there might be pre-qualifiers and conditions in order to satisfy whether or not that I could do that. Could you talk a little bit about the public service loan forgiveness program and who that's for?
Yeah, so this is a program for those who work in the public sector. So for the government at any level. So that can include your city firefighters, it can include your local library, it can include state.
Mm.
So you can work for city, county, state, federal, tribal, as long as you work for the government in any capacity. And that includes educators, it includes military. Then so that's the first factor is who you work for. So it has to be the government or a nonprofit corporation. So if you work for a nonprofit, you can also have your loans forgiven. So basically, after you make 120 on-time payments, which is 10 years of payments, and you can't double those up or anything, it is a full 10 years of payments. Any remaining balance is forgiven and it's tax-free for those individuals. So this is for, this could include nurses or doctors or even the janitor at a hospital who's working at a state hospital. It can include educators. There's so many people that qualify for this, but there's forms you have to fill out every single year. You have to have your employer sign and send those in, and then you have to apply for forgiveness. It's not automatic. And so that there are
Wow.
steps to take, and you want to make sure you have the right types of loans. You want to make sure you're in the right repayment plan. And so it's one of those things. It takes up about, I don't know, 5 or 6 pages in the book, because it's one of those programs that's a little bit more complicated. You have to work full time. And so that, like you said, there's a lot of nuances. So I would definitely spend some time reading that section of the book and understanding it if you plan to work in that in the public sector at all.
It could have even, and the other aha moment that I had, Ryan, with the book was that if I'm a career counselor,
Mhm.
you're a person's choice of employment
Yeah,
might be predicated on the amount of student loans that they had. And we
right.
never drew that kind of correlation because, again, of a lack of awareness of
Mhm.
programs like the public service loan forgiveness. That could be for some people, that
Yeah,
could be a real incentive to,
absolutely.
yeah, to get a job in the public sector.
You mentioned that there's a lot of financial advisors who are part of this book club. You could go to your local university and speak to the education department. You could speak to the doctors, all of these different groups that are going to work in the public sector. Share this information, and right there, you've got clients that are going to be making a high income in the future. So it's a great way for you to become an expert at that certain topic, the public service loan forgiveness, and go out there and serve, but you can also be rewarded with clients down the road.
Wow, that is phenomenal, phenomenal advice. When you and I started our conversation before we let everybody in here, everyone, we were talking about the fact that you were in front of, I think, like 200 students yesterday, and
Mhm.
questions were coming at you left and right. Like you
Right.
have to literally turn off your PowerPoint.
Yeah.
I was wondering what are on the minds of today's students? What was the question that kept on popping up yesterday?
It was a variety of questions. I find that they're becoming more savvy about student loans, that they're understanding that this is something that they need to understand, they need to study, they need to learn about. And so a lot of it was just questions about, should I take out student loans, or should I make payments while I'm going to school, or should I consider working in the public sector? What does that look like? What does forgiveness look like? Like you said, I had to just shut off my PowerPoint and just answer questions, and that happens frequently. It was an honors class that I went and spoke to yesterday. A couple of weeks before this, I spoke to a group of residents, some doctors they have an average of 250 to $350,000 worth of debt. So we talked to them
Mm.
about this new plan and how that can help them. And so it's just, I find that students are becoming aware of it, because when I went to school, most students had a pretty low amount of debt. I mean, you'd see some occasionally, but what's happening is tuition has gone up so much, in housing and inflation and all these things. So students are starting to say, I might need to borrow more, and they're getting concerned about how much they're taking out. And so that level of savviness is going up a bit, but they're looking for that education. They're looking for, who can I turn to for help on this topic.
And again, I commend you on just on your service to those students. I know that you teach on a variety of topics, and you've also written a couple of other books. Kind of tell us what's next and new for you. What are you working on right now?
Yeah, my next project that I'm currently at the beginning stages of, but I'm working on a project in a book that will be around money in marriage, and how to help manage that money in marriage, stop the fighting that happens. Fights about money are intense within marriages, and so my goal is to help in that area next, and to help people see, like, these are the principles that can help you: principles of communication, principles of money. So it will help teach these married couples how to just manage everything better and be able to stop fighting about money and get on the right track financially.
Yeah, I mean, I really like that. You and your wife celebrating your 25th
Yes.
anniversary next year with 5 kids, like, yes. If we're
Yes.
gonna learn, you would be the one of the perfect people to learn from.
Excellent. Yes. Hopefully, we're actually going to do a podcast together where we're going to
Oh,
talk about money and things. That's probably sometime middle of next year, but we've started thinking about topics and things that we can talk about together. So
oh,
should
I
be
love that.
yeah.
But before our last question, again, we put your link to your author page and financial behavior keynote and your LinkedIn. Are there any other ways, again, if people want to ask a question? And I already asked the question. I said, can Ryan, can families hire you? You know, hire you to
Yeah.
give an opinion. And yeah, so spoiler alert, get the book.
That's right.
Again, we're lucky that we're dealing with a sophisticated audience here. But if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Yeah, there's LinkedIn is a great way. I don't post a lot just because I've got a lot going on. And so I don't post a lot on LinkedIn, but I always respond to messages on there. I do have a website that financial advisors can go to. It's just my name, ryanhlaw.com. So again, it's just ryanhlaw.com. And that is a website for financial advisors and financial professionals. So I've got a short weekly email that I send out. I've got links to some study material, articles, links to my books, different things like that. So it's that is for financial advisors to utilize. Since I teach in that area, I've got that available for them. But I don't do one-on-one student loan counseling. It's just I don't have the capacity for it. I do have recommendations in the book for who to contact if you need help, but unfortunately I don't have the capacity to take one-on-one financial counseling clients in that regard. So
Well, that's also too why we're so grateful that you wrote the book, because again, that's that's taking your knowledge at scale. The other topics that you talk about frequently in the industry are
change is one of them, and how to make positive changes. So my most recent book, except for this third edition of this book, is all about it's short again. I kept it very short on purpose, but it's all about how to make those positive changes and what you can do to start incorporating good habits into your life to eliminate bad things, so bad habits. So I've spoken about that topic at various industry conferences. So that's a topic that I'm very passionate about. Communication is another one, and really understanding listening skills and how you can better listen to your clients so that you can understand them and help them. So that's another big topic that I talk about as well.
great, great. Well, you provided such a wealth of knowledge. Is there anything else, any last words of advice for our book club members? And you all know that I appreciate you all so much. Thank you all so much for being here live. We moved, you'll notice that we moved the day from a Wednesday to a Tuesday this week because of an event that and some travel tomorrow that I have to be at. So Ryan has been so gracious with his time and his knowledge. But any words of wisdom as we depart?
Yeah, I would say that as far as helping clients, or if anybody is listening to this call that has, if you've got your own student loan debt, is that it can be paid off.
Mm,
There's inspiring stories out there of people who worked really hard. They got their loans paid off as quickly as possible. So it can be done. And as financial advisors, you can help people. You have a unique opportunity here to become an expert at a topic that will help, like Tina said, create clients for life who will value this education that you can provide for them. I heard a seasoned financial professional one time say that the choosing the right repayment plan is more important than choosing the right strategies for Social Security, because student
mm.
loans, it can affect everything going down the road. So become an expert in this area, or at least have the book so that you can turn to it and say, okay, I even if I'm not going to become the expert, I can turn to and I can answer questions. Or like you said, send it to your clients. It's written in a very easy manner. It's not academic literature. It is very much written to the average borrower out there. So it's a book that can really help a lot of people. And I would encourage you to utilize that with your clients if possible.
Such great advice. Again, it was been a fantastic read. I thank you so much for the honor and the privilege to have you here today on the book club. Ryan, happy anniversary, happy
Thank you.
25th anniversary to you and your wife. We hope that you have a great holiday, and blessings to you and everybody on the call. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. It's good to be here.
You too. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.